Okay, let's turn our attention to what's happening on the currency markets right now. Yesterday, as we saw stock markets go up, we saw the dollar strengthen a little bit against the euro and sterling. That has been reversed. Yen slightly stronger against the dollar, 89.07. I was going to show you what was happening to euro sterling. We'll give me euro sterling as well. I want to start with that. We're joined by Keith Miller, currency strategist at Corporate FX. Keith, good to see you.
Good morning.
The reason I want to talk about euro sterling is PMIs in the UK a short while ago, service PMIs, a little bit better than expected, and the composite eurozones are a little bit weaker. So euro sterling has strengthened just a little bit. We're now down to an 89 handle. What are you looking at here for this particular cross?
This is extremely interesting at the moment. I think what you've mentioned there with the recent PMI figures, it really tells me that the markets are over-optimistic about the euro and over-pessimistic about sterling. I think that's completely reflected in what we've seen in these figures this morning. And with tomorrow, with the interest rate decisions in the ECB and also in the Bank of England, I think we could see some interesting moves, if not on the actual the decision itself, but certainly in the statements that are released.
At the moment,
after.
I don't know whether rate cuts. We're expecting a rate cut out of the UK and not one out of the ECB. And I don't know whether the market at the moment perceives rate cuts as positive or negative for a currency.
It would usually be seen as being negative for it, but I think at the moment we're certainly seeing that it's acting proactive for the central banks. They're moving in the right direction and trying to bolster their economies.
Keith, it's Brian Shackman here in the States. What's your view on the dollar? I mean, when I look at the bond, the U.S. Treasury market on the long end, you see the pop and the yields. We're going to issue so much debt here. Obviously, it looks like print a lot of money. What's your overall take on it?
The dollar is going through major problems, as we all know. It's also wrapped up in the risk aversion story, the risk appetites. If we continue to see the data coming out of the US, then of course it's going to suggest US weakness. However, we're continuing to see the safe haven flow back into the US dollar for a number of assets and a number of other currencies. So there really is a battle between strength and weakness in the US dollar.
Keith, more here in Asia. Is there any validity to the argument that actually the Japanese yen could be the real safe haven currency right now? I mean, on top of what Brian said about the whole issuance of whole lot of debt in the U.S., would that make sense to have the yen then as the new safe haven if you're worried about the declining dollar?
It could well be. If you look at the Japanese economy, they've gone through their pain in the 90s during their banking crisis. They handled it quite well, and fundamentally they're in a much stronger position than I would probably put my neck on the line and say a number of or most of the major economies in the world. The Japanese yen is certainly looking at a very interesting place for investors to put their money.
Yeah, I mean, this risk aversion is still seems to be the primary driver here for currencies. When what would we look for us to move out of the recent ranges that we've been in?
I think we need to see more liquidity, certainly in the markets. We need to see the banks starting to lend to each other. We need to see emerging markets getting back the support that they lost during the second half of last year. Once we see that, it will reignite risk. Risk will go back into the markets, and we will stabilise on a number of markets that we're seeing.
Keith, good to see you. Thanks very much.
Thank you very
Keith
much.
Miller, currency strategist at Corporate FX.